Welcome to my video commentary. I will be discussing a sequence I have chosen from the film Pépé le Moko, directed by Julien Duvivier. It was released in 1936 and stars Jean Gabin, who at the time was a very well-known French star. He was known to play characters who were often marginalised by society and given a last chance at love, often then to be disappointed by either dying or losing the love that they were after. From the characters explored throughout this film and the time in which it was released, the film can be firmly placed within the poetic realist genre, as this was a type of filmmaking that focused on characters that one might not usually find at the forefront of the films. It was a way to give an insight into the lives usually forgotten by society. The presence of Pépé as a criminal being hunted by the local and Parisian police also gives this film an element of early film noir. At the time that we join his story, Pépé has been hiding out in the Casbah for 2 years, evading police capture, mostly thanks to the unique nature of the Casbah. The Casbah itself refers to what one might describe as the walled city that is found within the city of Algiers. It is particular because it appears visually different to that of the rest of the city of Algiers, since the presence of the French ruling government in Algeria meant that the rest of the city was built up to resemble a more European city, giving it a landscape that wouldn't be out of place on mainland France. This was in order to make it more appealing to the European tourists. However, the Casbah was the part that remained untouched, and was where the native people of Algeria were forced to live, as well as any immigrants to the country that were unable to afford the luxury promised by the rest of the city. This meant that the Casbah not only retained a lot of the local culture from the people, but became a melting pot of all the other cultures that would call it home, creating a place like no other. The diversity and subsequent chaos of the Casbah is noted by the film right from the outset, as it lists the different types of people that one can find within its walls, giving an insight to the nature of this place, and which makes it then a perfect location for people who are trying to hide and get lost, like our protagonist, for example. The sequence I've chosen is found near the beginning of the film and explores the location of the Casbah itself and the way the characters interact with their surroundings. The importance of this sequence is threefold. Firstly, the sequence allows the audience to witness the influence and renown that Pépé has within the Casbah. It is a way of establishing his character within the environment that he has come to call home, and is a way for us to see who he is before the events of the film take an effect on him. Secondly, it is in this sequence that we see a lot of the events of later on in the film be foreshadowed. The main point here being the importance of the character of Gabby and the beginnings of her influence on Pépé and how this will go on to affect him as their story unfolds. Finally, the sequence is seen to establish some of the secondary characters of the film, the first being Slimane, who we can assume to be a type of antagonist to Pépé's protagonist, and the second being Tanya, who, although is just one woman and only has a small role within the film as a whole, comes to be an important representation of the other types of characters that come to inhabit the Casbah. The presence of her character and the insight we are given to her life within the sequence allows us as the audience to understand why the Casbah is made to be a home for the many that come to be there. Contextually, the sequence appears after the night before, where Pépé met Gabby for the first time after having been introduced by Slimane. Gabby is a mistress of a wealthy businessman and is on this business trip, meaning she is a tourist to the city. Immediately before the sequence begins, Pépé has just had an argument with Inez, who is his girlfriend within the Casbah, about how he feels like he is trapped, and she only ever reminds him of the fact that he is confined there. As the sequence unfolds, we learn that Gabby resembles a polar opposite to the character of his girlfriend Inez, which intrigues Pépé and makes him view her as his connection to the Paris he once knew and the Paris that he longs after for the rest of the film, which then has a profound effect on the choices he makes and the consequences that comes with those choices.
Mais c'est pas fini! Moi je vais te faire taire, tu vas voir! Tiens, Tania! C'est pas Carlos qui te parlerait sur ce ton, hein? Carlos, il dit rien. Il agit. Il te bat? Quelquefois, ça le distrait. Et toi, n'est-ce pas, tu n'es qu'une femme, alors baisse la tête et tais-toi. J'ai toujours été battue. Quand je faisais du Cap France, mon ami qui était chanteur de charme, il me giflait parce que j'avais plus de succès que lui. Avec une tête à claque. J'ai tout fait pour en changer. Comme si t'étais en rousse, en brune, en blonde. Ça n'a rien donné. Je peux tout de même pas me teindre en vert. Tiens, ils se sont apaisés. Et fait, il ferait pas de mal à une mouche. Ah, qui le dit-il? T'as entendu ça?
Dieu, ma grosse.
On t'aime trop, Pépé, les femmes te perdront.
Oh, rassure-toi, va, je leur donne mon corps, mais je garde ma tête. On sait jamais, tu peux en avoir besoin un jour. Pas vrai?
En tout cas, quand on te dit je t'aime, on n'y met pas de discrétion. Hein.
Qu'est-ce que tu veux? J'ai du sexe à pile. Tu descends?
Oui.
Ça va, Pépé?
Bonjour. Alors, c'est bien rentré hier soir?
Très gentiment.
T'as pas fait de mauvaise rencontre?
Si.
Qui?
La tienne.
Oh, oh, j'étais tout ce qu'il y a de câlin avec toi. C'est ta copine.
Je l'ai escortée jusqu'à son hôtel.
Ah, sur ma gueule. Qu'est-ce qu'elle t'a dit?
Oh, rien. Des mots. Je n'écoute jamais beaucoup les femmes, tu sais. Comment la trouves-tu?
Pas mal. Ah, des perles. Un sourire comme je les aime. Oripolin. Des menottes comme je les comprends. En platine avec des petits diamants. Et puis un de ces airs de se foutre de la société, alors. Ah! Eh, qu'est-ce qu'elle t'a dit?
Tu sais bien que tu les charmes toutes.
Oui, mais elle, dans son genre, c'est une espèce de petite reine, hein. Ça. Elle t'a parlé de moi?
Elle t'impressionne, hein?
Non. Mais entre elle et Inès, il y a autant de différences, je sais pas, moi, que... Qu'entre un vieux phono et un appareil ADLC, fais attention. Alors, qu'est-ce qu'elle t'a dit?
Elle m'a posé beaucoup de questions.
Et qu'est-ce que t'as répondu?
Oh, rien. Pendant ce temps-là, je pensais que je n'avais pas encore répondu, moi, à l'autre question que toi, tu m'avais posée.
Ah, oui. Et alors, combien ça irait chercher si tu m'arrêtais?
20 ans avec un bon avocat.
Tu m'aimes trop pour ça. Et puis tu vas pas m'obliger à te transformer en macabé, toi qui pries si bien et naturellement, hein? Et comment elle s'appelle?
Qui?
Eh ben, la sœur d'hier.
C'est trop comme elle te plaît, Pépé.
Un caprice, quoi. Tiens, viens, on va chez Chani.
As the scene begins, we see Slimane, the police detective, make his way to the door of where Pépé is staying. This is significant in itself, as previously he has been criticised by the other police investigators for his lack of arrest of Pépé. However, he defended himself by alluding to the fact that he has indeed got a plan to arrest him. The fact that he knows where the criminal lives and yet is biding his time to act on this information is telling of his character. We can assume that he is a very suspicious and cunning type of person. One can also tell by the way Slimane dresses that he is not like the other police investigators that we have seen. He is a local member of the force, and it shows in the way that he is able to walk through the Casbah both with ease and with an understanding of where he is going, which is exactly what the other officers have mentioned as their main obstacle they face within the Casbah. The fact that he also engages in a seemingly meaningless conversation with Tanya in the front of the house, and he knows personal details about her life, the name of her husband being one of them, shows that he is interested in forming the smaller connections which in the long run will work in his favour, as it is through these that he picks up the local gossip and keeps up to date with the goings-on of the Casbah, giving him that edge over the other police investigators. It is important to note here at the beginning of the sequence the way in which the light is used. The light for the scene comes through most brightly from the top of the frame, which resembles the natural sunlight streaming through. Its purpose is to show how the light would come through naturally in a place like the Casbah. The highly built buildings and the meandering alleyways give the Casbah its maze-like structure, which provides the people living there with the adequate amount of shadow, both from the heat of the sun, but also, symbolically speaking, places to hide from the outside world, which is favourable to certain characters that you might find there, including our protagonist. The camera then closes in on Tanya's face as she's talking. This extreme close-up gives us the ability to see the beads of sweat dripping down her face, which is something that comes up as a characteristic of the locals. It becomes almost part of their own costume. They are portrayed as being dirtier and they sweat openly, whereas the tourists and members of the police that aren't Slimane aren't seen to do this. This provides a clear separation of the two types of characters for the audience. By giving her this extreme close-up, the audience is forced to focus on her and not the surrounding action. The close-up zoom takes her away from the chaos of everything else. She's giving us the insight into her life before the Casbah. Her line, "I've always been beaten," speaks volumes to the types of characters that are found in the Casbah, placing this firmly within the genre of poetic realism, as the focus is then given to the characters that have been marginalised by the society in which they live, and have essentially been beaten by life in order to end up, not always out of choice, in this chaotic environment. Another zoom quickly follows the previous one, this time used to focus in on the game being played by two of Pépé's lackeys. Here the zoom is focusing on the innocence of the simple game being played by the two while they wait for their leader to join them. The emphasis made here gives an insight into the simplicity of the life that can also be led in the Casbah. The technique of the zoom gives the audience the time to focus on the actions and words of the characters and separates them from the chaos of the Casbah, which is so often something throughout the film that is hard to do, since the very nature of this location is something that is almost alive and always moving. Pépé then enters the scene from the door to the right of the screen, greets Tanya, openly ignores Slimane's offering of a handshake, which we could interpret as a symbol of the disregard Pépé has for authority figures. The camera then follows Pépé as he makes his way over to his lackeys for them to offer and light a cigarette up for him. The prop of the cigarette being handed to him by one and lit by another shows the respect that Pépé commands from the people that surround him, and also allows us to see his position as the leader without it being explicitly stated. This process of the cigarette lighting while he is talking all happens in one take. This is an example of the long takes that are favoured by this film and by films of the poetic realism genre in general. By allowing the actions to unfold in real time, the director is retaining the realistic aspect to them, and it uses the camera as an object that observes rather than dictates the action. The way in which the scene also smoothly transitions into the next of them walking down the steps into the Casbah is also an example of continuity editing, which is a form of editing favoured by this film and the genre to allow for the continuation of the action without interference of the camera, so that, again, it resembles real life as closely as possible. Pépé and Slimane then make their way through the Casbah, talking and discussing the events of the night in which they met Gabi. It is here that we witness the profound effect that Gabi has had on Pépé, despite him only meeting her for a few minutes and not really sharing much of a conversation. It is also during this long, seemingly mundane conversation with Slimane that we are able to gauge Pépé's opinions of the women in his life and the importance he gives them, which can then be said to translate into the way they influence his life. For example, to him, Inez is like a phonograph, meaning he has lost the appeal he once had to her, and she has now become almost routine and bland, whereas Gabi to him is like a wireless, meaning that she is the newer object in his life and offers variety and fun, which to him is a welcome change from the monotony of Inez. It is important to note here the fact that as they make their way down the stairs into the Casbah, many of the women who are sat in the doorways and in the alley, which are typical sights of the Casbah, all greet Pépé as if he is some form of celebrity amongst them. This confirms his reputation as a well-known player within this small community of people, which shows the comfort he feels when he is in the Casbah. It has become his home, regardless of his feelings towards it. It welcomes him with open arms, and the women here act almost like a personification of the Casbah itself. They represent its exotic, enticing nature. We are then able to further explore this exotic place as the characters move through the Casbah during their conversation. Through the tracking movement of the camera, we are able to start to see the peculiarities that identify this place as somewhere exotic and out of the ordinary, such as the alcoves and arches with the stalls hidden away and people in the doorways. The use of these images in the film were important to set the scene for the audience and to make the link between the images they would have been used to receiving through postcards and propaganda of these French colonies at the time. The interactions then between Pépé and the local merchants is also something that further symbolises his reputation, but also the fact that he has come to have as close a normal life as he can here. And through this we witness him using local ways of greeting the stall owners, and he picks up food and wares of the stall, which symbolically shows the level of integration he has come to know in this place. As then they move further into the Casbah, the presence of the local music becomes more significant. It changes more to a drum beat, and a man can be heard to sing over the top of it, which adds to the exotic feel that Duvivier wanted to give to this place, in order to make sure that the audience was aware that the location they are in is nothing like the France they are used to. And then further into the sequence, the music and the noises from the hustle and bustle of the Casbah blend into a sort of chaotic harmony, which again is a way for the director to emphasise the fact that this place is unlike any other and found elsewhere, and also that it has this chaotic and enticing exotic nature. Most of the other shots throughout the sequence are tracking shots, as previously mentioned, and move between being medium long and medium close-up shots as the characters walk through the setting. However, every now and again the characters are viewed in low-angle shots, which reinforces the idea that at this point Pépé is still a criminal of a certain calibre, and it adds to his current powerful image. Also, to further emphasise this, the lighting is usually brighter on Pépé, leaving Slimane in more of a shadow, which is almost like a juxtaposition of character, since Pépé is the one who is the criminal, but we are made to view him as the hero of the film. In conclusion, this sequence allows us to establish not only the relationships between characters, like that of Pépé and Slimane, but also their relationship to the Casbah itself. As a whole, the sequence works to provide a focus for the rest of the film based on the points brought up in the conversation between Slimane and Pépé. By talking about Gabi in the detail that they do, and the interest then shown from Pépé, it foreshadows her involvement in his life, and one could argue that by him using the line "just a passing fancy," and the fact that Slimane mentions that women could be his undoing, he is therefore then sealing his and her fate together.